The evolution of governance. Islam and the evolution of governance, a comparative study of systems, economies, and human rights. Introduction. The advent of Islam in the 7th century CE marked a transformative period in global governance. It introduced a unifying political system, blending spiritual leadership with state administration. Unlike previous tribal structures, the Islamic model integrated diverse ethnicities, legal traditions, and economic systems under one centralized authority. This article examines the first Islamic governance, its successes, decline, economic comparisons, human rights considerations, and Afghanistan's role in the modern era of nation-states. The first Islamic government, a unification of tribes and nations. Before Islam, Arabia was divided into tribal factions, often engaged in warfare. The political landscape lacked central authority, relying on kinship-based leadership. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, introduced the first Islamic government in Medina in 622 CE, known as the Medina Charter, which established a multi-ethnic and multi-religious state where Muslims, Jews, and other groups were given protection, outlined citizenship and rights based on loyalty rather than lineage, introduced a judicial system that combined divine law, Sharia, with tribal arbitration, created a welfare system for orphans, widows, and the poor. This system transcended tribalism, bringing together Arabs, Persians, Byzantines, and others under a common Islamic identity rather than ethnic allegiance. Success in the early years, a thriving civilization. The first four caliphs, 632 to 661 CE, successfully expanded and institutionalized governance. Key achievements included: 1. Economic prosperity. Trade flourished across Arabia, Persia, North Africa, and South Asia, linking markets with a common currency and tax system, zakat and jizya. The Bayt al-Mal, public treasury, ensured wealth distribution. Agriculture, irrigation projects, and manufacturing grew, enhancing food security. 2. Security and stability. A well-organized military secured trade routes and protected borders. Law and order were maintained through qadis, judges, and provincial governors. 3. Human rights and social justice. Slavery was reduced, and former slaves like Bilal ibn Rabah held high positions. Religious minorities were given autonomy under the dhimmi system. Women's rights improved, allowing them to own property and inherit wealth, a significant shift from pre-Islamic norms. The beginning of decline and the beneficiaries. While early Islamic governance succeeded, internal conflicts eventually led to fragmentation. When did the decline begin? The assassination of Caliph Uthman, 656 CE, and the rise of the Umayyad Caliphate, 661 CE, shifted governance from an elective system to dynastic rule. The Abbasid Empire, 750 to 1258 CE, faced internal corruption, economic stagnation, and Mongol invasions. European powers and the Ottoman collapse 1924 CE marked the final disintegration of Islamic political unity. Who benefited from the decline? European colonial empires capitalized on Muslim disunity to expand into the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. Local elites in regions like Persia and Egypt established independent rule under European influence. Western economies benefited from access to trade routes and resources formerly under Islamic control. Comparing Islamic governance with other systems. 1. Economy. Islamic lands versus European kingdoms. Factor: Islamic empires, 750 to 1500 CE. European kingdoms, 750 to 1500 CE. Wealth and system. Wealth distribution. Welfare taxation zakat reduced inequality. Wealth concentrated in feudal aristocracy. Trade. Silk Road, Indian Ocean, and trans-Saharan trade flourished. Limited trade until maritime expansion, 15th century. Banking: Islamic checks enabled international trade. Banking developed much later, Renaissance era. Security. Islamic Caliphate versus feudal Europe. The Islamic world had professional armies, whereas feudal Europe relied on mercenaries and local militias. Islamic governance used codified law, while Europe relied on monarchical decrees and church influence. 3. Human rights. Islamic Sharia versus medieval European law. Islamic courts protected property and contracts, while Europe's feudal lords could seize land arbitrarily. Women had inheritance rights under Islam. In Europe, women were largely disinherited. The birth of modern governance and challenges. Modern governance evolved from European Enlightenment ideals, but Islamic principles also influenced statecraft. Who built systematic governance? Ancient China introduced bureaucratic meritocracy. The Ottoman Empire, 1299 to 1924, developed a systematic tax, legal, and military structure. European nation-states, 18th and 19th centuries, established democratic governance models. Modern challenges and responses. Globalization challenges sovereignty, requiring nations to balance local governance with international law. Economic inequality grows, forcing governments to refine welfare policies. Technology and cybersecurity impact governance, leading to new legal structures for digital governance. Islamic governance, priorities then versus now. Main focus, changes over time. 7th to 10th century, expanding trade, military protection, legal justice. Focus on military power shifted to diplomacy. 11th to 15th century, cultural and scientific innovation, decline due to Mongol invasions and crusades. 16th to 20th century, colonial resistance and reform movements. Loss of global power led to Western-influenced reforms. 21st century, economic diversification, digital governance, and geopolitical shifts, balancing tradition with modernity. The role of money, technology, and power in governance. 1. Money. Central banks regulate inflation and economic stability, yet financial crises remain a challenge. 2. Technology. Surveillance and AI shape security and administration. 3. Power. Soft power. Diplomacy is now as vital as military strength. Afghanistan in the era of national boundaries. Afghanistan historically resisted foreign-imposed borders. Before modern nation-states, Afghanistan was a crossroad of civilizations. What Afghanistan left behind before modern borders: a decentralized tribal system, independent regional governance instead of Western-style administration, a culture of self-rule despite external pressures, British, Soviet, American interventions. Where does Afghanistan stand today? Caught between modernization and tradition, balancing governance styles. Economic struggles due to sanctions, limiting financial growth. Security concerns due to internal factions, challenging national unity. Conclusion: the evolution of governance and the future. Islam introduced one of the most advanced governance systems of its time, creating an economically, politically, and socially stable empire. Over time, power struggles, external invasions, and changing global dynamics led to its decline. Meanwhile, modern nation-states refined governance, but challenges remain in security, economy, and human rights. Afghanistan, like many post-colonial states, struggles to find its place in a world defined by national borders. Yet, its history suggests resilience and adaptability, making it a crucial case study in global governance. For more unfiltered historical analysis, subscribe. Unfiltered Afghan. Afghanistan like you've never seen, unfiltered and unbothered. Subscribe.